And Commissioner Beckstead, go ahead and kick it off.
Excellent. Well, thank you and good morning, everyone. I will call to order the November 13th meeting of the Best Practices and Strategic Planning Committee for the Oregon Racing Commission. This is my first one, so I'm totally winging it. And Connie and everyone else, by all means, jump in here. But I thought maybe what we do first is a roll call.
I'll go ahead and take roll call. Chris Adams, are you here?
I
think that's an I am, since I can see him. It looks
am
like
present.
Yes, and I am present, Connie Wynn, and Commissioner Beckstead, you're clearly present.
Present, yes.
So we have 100% of our people.
We are few, but we are mighty. Could we just maybe do brief introductions so that I kind of have a sense of who everyone is? I know we've got a couple on the meeting today on the Zoom who are present, but not necessarily members of the commission. But maybe I'll go first. I'm Scott Beckstead. I'm coming to you from Sutherland here in North Douglas County. Lifelong horse guy, born and raised with horses, became, shall we say, closely involved in the thoroughbred breed and the welfare of thoroughbreds when I adopted an off-track thoroughbred gelding who became the greatest horse I've ever known, and have been active in my professional career, looking out for the welfare of horses, all animals, but especially horses. And so I'm excited to be a member of the commission and do what I can for these amazing creatures. So that's me. Mr. Adams, do you want to go next?
Sure. Good morning. My name is Chris Adams. I'm relatively new to the commission. I started at the end of May, just in time for race season. My background is primarily law enforcement and criminology. I'm the chief investigator here, and not a horseman by trade, so pretty good learning curve when it comes to this industry.
Well, welcome. Looking forward to learning from you. I see that Connie, do you want to just say a few words, introduce yourself?
Sure. Before I go though, Chris, I think you have some good personal background. Can you talk a little bit about your hobbies that take up a great deal of your time with your animals?
Yeah, when I'm not at work, I'm at work at the home. My wife and I have a dog rescue / animal sanctuary. We take in retired livestock. We do have a donkey and a mini pony, so I guess I do have some equine experience, but mostly goats and pigs, things like that. But we rescue dogs primarily from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Fresno area, and work diligently to get them rehomed, primarily throughout the state. We are a registered 501c, and it is extremely busy. So I've got a big heart for animals and animal welfare, and I want to try and make as much difference when it comes to that as I can. That's kind of where my heart's at for this.
Chris, are you located in Texas?
No, my wife and I, we live in the Eagle Point area, which is just north of Medford, here in Jackson County. And I came to this, I do have a medical background from my time in the Air Force, and was previously a detective assigned to the medical examiner's office for the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. So, biology and investigations are kind of intertwined for me.
That's a great background. And to me, the fact that you've got a mini donkey and a mini horse kind of seals the deal. I don't know that it gets any better than that.
They are fun.
Okay, Connie, just a few words about yourself, please.
My name is Connie Wynn. I'm the executive director. I came on about a year ago, And we have many challenges and many opportunities. I'm sure you're getting to that or starting to understand that, Commissioner. This committee was not considered to be a priority of the former commission. I think it's extremely important. I think it should drive the commission on the direction we're going. So I'm thrilled that we have re-engaged this and added on the strategic planning element. That's me.
Very good. And Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen Parkman. I'm the program coordinator for the agency, and I am a longtime equestrian since about 9 years old. I've competed, I breed them. I've done about every thing that you can do with horses, and they are my love and my passion and my why. So that's my background.
Thanks, Karen. Linnell from Otoba.
Good morning, Commissioner Beckstead. So I think I know everyone, and everyone probably knows who I am. I'm the executive director of the Oregon Thoroughbred Owners and Breeders Association. I've been with the association for almost 13 years now, promoting breeding, thoroughbred breeding in Oregon. We had the pleasure, our board president and I had the pleasure of meeting with Commissioner Beckstead a couple weeks ago, and we started talking about off-track thoroughbreds and rehoming and having some policy in place for slaughter. So we're working on that. We're excited to be a part of that and working with him. And I'll reach out to you, Connie, about maybe getting an industry meeting together so that we can get some policies in place and look at doing some programs for off-track thoroughbreds and promote that part of our industry as well. So I'm just going to observe here, but Commissioner, if you need anything, just holler, I'm listening, but I'll probably just go off video though.
All right, thank you so much for joining us. And Vince. Vince, are you I see your name, but I don't see, we can't hear you or see you. Okay, maybe Vince will join us later. Let's get right into the agenda then. Let's see. First, the meeting agenda. We've had, I think, 2 versions of the agenda. I'm looking at the one that came out. This is the second one, the one that I'm looking at now. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
A motion to approve the agenda.
Very good. Is there a second?
Chris, that's you.
Looking for the mute button. I second.
You know, with only 3 of us, this whole voting thing should be a snap. Okay. All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Agenda is approved. No old business. Vince, I saw your face. Do you want to jump back on and take just a minute and introduce yourself? You're on mute.
Now you're off mute.
We're not hearing anything, Vince. It says that it doesn't say you're muted, but we can't hear you.
Commissioner, I also see that Tag is on, and Tag knows Vince, so maybe you could have Tag introduce himself, and he can talk about Vince as well.
Yes, Tag, go for it.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. I just didn't want to be in the same situation as Vince. I can't see anybody. I'm pretty low tech here in Humboldt County, but I'm the Director of Communications at Grants Pass Downs, and I work for both the Southern Oregon Horse Racing Association and the Horsemen's Racing Association, and I like to try to keep up with everything that's going on in Oregon as far as the industry is concerned. Enjoy working with everybody. We've got a great team, and I'm very passionate about the industry in Oregon, and I want to try to do what I can, not only individually, but also on behalf of SORA and HRA to support the industry and everything that everybody is doing to promote the industry. And I'm going to assume, even though I can't see him, I'm going to assume that Vince is probably our track photographer, and not only the track photographer at Grants Pass Downs, but the track photographer at other stops on the summer fair circuit. And we're very fortunate to have Vince and his wife, Linda, who do an amazing job in working with the horsemen and working with all our corporate partners to make sure everybody's taken care of.
Very good. Thank you very much, Tag and Vince, for joining us today. I wondered, Connie, if you could just give us a 2-minute history of this committee. What is your understanding of sort of the founding purpose of this committee, and what kind of work has it done in the past?
Sure, I can. And my background's a little bit different in the fact that I wasn't in the government for most of my life. And I know when we had done best practices and key performance measures, they were extremely important part of our integral work. And that has not been the case in the past with the Oregon Racing Commission. Although we have best practices that we are to report on an annual basis, we've never really had a strategic plan, at least as long as I've been here. And when we did have a best practices committee, they were just basically making sure that we've checked all the blocks so we can go forward. And they met maybe once or twice a year. To me, although that's what they did in the past, I'm hoping that we can take a whole new direction with this group. That's one of the reasons why there's no old business, because this group hasn't been around for a long time. And start at the very beginning, review some of the metrics that we have, some of the metrics we may have in the future, some of the things that we're working on for our strategic planning. Our chief investigator is also part of our strategic planning group, and start to really set a good direction and add good performance measurements that we can work on that will bring us up to where we really see our organization going. Does that help?
Yes, very good. Thank you so much, Connie. All right, so getting down to the new businesses, the first item is to review best practices. And I have this document printed out. This is the best practice performance measure for the Oregon Racing Commission. Is this the document we should all have in front of us?
That's correct. Would you like me to share it on the screen?
Yeah, sure.
Let me see if I can still remember how I share on the screen. Let's see. There we go. That should be. There we go. Share. And hopefully you are looking at the best practices now.
Yep, I see it.
Okay, great. Let me go ahead and make that a little bigger. All right, can you all see that all okay? All right, and although Karen is not part of this committee, I may refer to her on a couple questions on this, because she has more experience with the life of this forum than I do. As I understand it, this forum, these best practices are were given to us by the legislatures, and they haven't changed in many, many years, at least as long as I've been here. And what usually happens is a month or so before the end of the fiscal year, this best practices assessment form is given out to all the commissioners to complete. and return, and that's part of our key performance metrics review that goes to the legislature every year. And I can go through each one of these with you. They're just yes or no answers. And one of my concerns is in the past, we just get a perfect score every single time. And I don't see ways for us to grow if we're continuing to give ourselves a perfect score all the time and not really looking at these and determining where we can go to improve. So how would you like me to do this? Would you like me to go through these individually?
I guess the question I have is, so these 16 items are then broken down in the subsequent pages, right? Where it says, where we have the criteria defined. And then so are these questions answered by the entire commission or just our committee?
No, the committee just drives this. They're answered by the entire commission.
Okay. All
So
right.
our goal, the way I see it, our goal, my Great Dane wanted to say good morning. Our goal is to make sure that we're on track for these and to help the commission understand where they need to go to best work on these. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so is this something where we would want to we want to go through this as a separate agenda item with the full commission then and go down and rank ourselves? Is that sort of how this would progress?
So normally you would just do it at the end of the year. I guess one of the things that we could do, for example, is we could talk about where we are right now and where we want to improve, or we can talk about, do we want to, I think one thing we do have room to work on is if we wanted to give different expectations within these these set groups. We could also, again, like you mentioned, we could take this to a commission meeting and say, this is what we have. This is where we think we are on this so far. This is up to you, Scott, Commissioner Beckstead. We can do wherever you want in this committee to make sure that we're following our best practices and improving on them.
Why don't we, here's my thought, why don't we go present this list at the do we have a January commission meeting?
Yes.
Let's present this at the January commission meeting, and then work on it as a commission, maybe in the February meeting, and then I don't know, I'm thinking maybe revisit it at the end of 2024 and see where we're at.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely, Commissioner.
Okay, very good. Because I can see we could probably spend several hours just going item by item through that, but I'd rather do it as a full commission rather than, does anyone have thoughts on doing it a better way, or does this sound okay? We introduce this document to the full commission in January. We go through the process of sort of analyzing where we are under these criteria in February, and then we revisit the list at the end of the year to see if we've made progress. Does that sound good to everyone? Speak now or forever hold your peace. All right. Okay, good.
I think Karen's got something she wants to add to that.
Yes, please.
You're on mute, Karen.
Sorry about that. So in the past, we would typically, at one of the summer fair meets, the commissioners would all attend and we would do what was called like a retreat for best practices. So we would have the meeting, and then after the meeting, because it's still a public meeting, anybody could leave as far as the public if they wanted to, or they could stay, and then the commissioners would stay and they would go through all of these items that are on that form and tweak it any way they wanted, go through how they thought that they should answer things and discuss if they're answering them appropriately. So something like that. And what you're saying sounds like a good time frame, except that we do have to report September. So I don't know that we would want to leave it all the way to the end of the year, right, Connie? We would have to have that. So this report does, it is dependent. So when we report to the legislature in the September timeframe, it is dependent on that this work is done.
I think Karen, thank you. I agree that it has to be done by September, but I really do like Commissioner Becksted's approach to it. We have a lot of brand new commissioners, so getting this in front of all of them early on in January, and then further discussing it in February in case they have things that they see that they want changed. And then as long as in January, we actually, or I'm sorry, June, since everybody's seen it, they'll be more aware of it. Then June, we can all meet either as a commission or as a retreat or however Commissioner Becksted thinks is best. Then we'll still have it in plenty of time for September.
Yeah, I like that idea. Let's actually go through the criteria in person in that June meeting, and then we can report to the commission in September, and we may have more to say after the race season, which as I understand it, will probably be over by the time the legislature meets for its legislative days in September. And so yeah, at that point it's sort of going to be I think very timely. So yeah, so I guess that would be the plan. Then we introduce the criteria at the January meeting. We further discuss it in February, and then we go item by item through it in person in June.
Sounds good.
All right. That will be the plan then. Okay, so then what is the difference between the best practices and the key performance measures, which is the next item on the agenda?
Another great question. The key performance measures are what the legislators have given us to report on an annual basis on how we're doing. The key performance measures that are currently set are animal safety, license turnaround time, customer services, and best practices. The best practices, number 4, is basically that whole best practices form. So that is part of all of these. The best practices is a quarter of the total evaluation that we currently have. With that said, the legislature has asked us to create some additional key performance measures, and I have included that in the packet as well.
Is that the language from the bill that we got from, I think Representative Gomberg may have created it? Is that what we're talking about?
That is correct, Commissioner. The language is the subcommittee also recommends key performance measures. And again, my dog is usually so good. I don't know why today. With introduction to develop measures that track animal injuries, animal abuse, race fixing, and illegal wagerings within Oregon.
So those are added as criteria to under the key performance measures that they want to hear about.
Yeah, so I've been directed that in the January legislative days, I'm not sure if it's in the January legislative days or February, but sometime between January and February, I'll be called to provide input and give them recommendations of how these should actually read. As part of my background for this and research, one of the things I've done is I've had a meeting with Representative Gomberg. I've also touched base with Representative Lively on these to ask Representative Gomberg exactly what he wanted. In this discussion, I also talked to him about some of the challenges that we had for example, we have no current way to be able to regulate or to facilitate any type of fines or penalties for illegal wagering in Oregon. And that's one of the criteria. Another one that's problematic for us is getting reports on animal abuse. So that's problematic for us. So in our discussions with Representative Gomberg, he put together a list of things, and he actually brought those to Representative Lively to put into a potential bill. That bill should be going forward. They just checked with me. They checked with the team while I was gone, so maybe a week ago, on the language. And the things that they will be including in that bill, provided it goes through, is all dog racing and wagering on dog races in Oregon would become unlawful. Any illegal horse racing, either online or on ground, would be enforcement. We recommend that the rule directs authority to the Oregon Racing Commission to develop procedures to conduct investigations and issues fines on those. Yeah, I'd like to see something like a $25,000 fine for each incident if somebody is wagering illegal. One of the problems that we have right now, Commissioner Begstead, is, for example, we know of 2 to 3 online wagering companies that are licensed in North Dakota that are illegally taking wagers in Oregon. They take a lot of Greyhound wagers too. I have gone to them and written letters to get them to stop taking these. They're not legal in Oregon. That's very clear. And these 2 companies, several others have stopped taking wagers, but these 2 companies have continued to take wagers and basically said that they don't think that we have the authority to do anything about it. I've gone to the Department of Justice, and the Department of Justice has agreed that, technically speaking, although it's illegal, our ability to enforce that, we really don't have any ability to enforce that. So that would help us to enforce that. My concern is if we make Greyhound racing illegal in Oregon, all those people who are wagering them are just going to go to those 2 platforms. So that would help with that. We also
So can I ask, I'm sorry to interrupt, can I just ask, I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. So does the legislation being offered by Representatives Gomberg and Lively, would it address that enforcement picture on that illegal?
Yes. And this is actually a bill. The reason Lively got involved in this is because both of them only get 2 bills each for the short session, but the committees get 3 bills. And Representative Lively is in charge of the gaming committee, and they have not used their bills up. So they're able to take this on. And that was something that Representative Gomberg and I were discussing, is how best could we help him and follow the directive of the governor to cease Greyhound racing in Oregon in the quickest, most timely manner. And again, he doesn't have a bill. So that was a solution to that. The other part of this is, one of the things as far as getting reports on abuse, we thought that the best way to do that would be to have the veterinarians, any veterinarian that is aware of any abuse on a racehorse, either on or off track, will be required to report it to the Oregon Racing Commission throughout the state. I'd actually ask for any law enforcement, which we may still go back and ask them to put in there in addition to the veterinarians, but the veterinarians would probably be the ones that would see it first. So, and they have not finished this. So if you have recommendations that you want me to bring them on this, they can still make changes, but that's kind of what we're looking with. We also ask that they reduce, this is aside from this, but it still ties into it, is we've also asked that they consider increasing our maximum fine. Right now, the maximum fine that we can give someone who cheats is $500. And that's not going to do a lot of good. So we asked that they increase it to $5,000, which is you know, for a small racetrack like us, a pretty heavy fine, and it's more in line with states like Washington.
Yeah, $500 is just, they're gonna see that as a cost of doing business.
Exactly. And that's so I was really happy, you know, I was just discussing these things with Representative Gomberg, and he just flat out took it and said, yeah, let's do all that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good to know. Okay, so and this bill is going to be introduced in January before the beginning of the session.
No, it'll be introduced during the short session. As far as when all the bills actually show up, I know they have to show up, become published before that, and I believe that's January. I'm not exactly sure, but they will appear before the session occurs. And the
Yeah, I
session
forgot.
is-
I forgot we were in for a short session in 24. So
yeah.
okay, all right.
So we're lucky to
Um,
get anything in a short session.
Yeah, that's true. Do you know, has there been any opposition by the commission or by individual commissioners to establishing sort of these key performance measures and you know, enforcing some of these issues? Or has it not really been talked about? Or
Yeah, I don't really know that we've addressed it at the full commission. I think maybe we've discussed it briefly, but I don't see that anybody would have any concerns on any of this, and it would be good to certainly. I would highly recommend that when you do your briefing on this, out briefing during the next commission meeting, that you discuss the fact that we're working on trying to come up with our recommendations.
okay, good. That sounds good to me. Any other questions, commissioners or the committee members, on the key performance measures? Any other questions or comments on that?
I do have actually one. We will be putting together our recommendations in the next few weeks. And I will provide that to you first, since you're on this committee. But if you have any ideas or concerns or recommendations that you can think of on these, please provide them to us before then. Or as soon as you happen to think of them, so we can add those.
Okay.
We just have to
Excellent.
figure out a way to be able to track it. That's the biggest thing. It has to be measurable.
And that would, you know, when we talk about discussion on metrics, that's kind of what you're referring to, right? Being able to track it and being able to quantify it and report it. Yeah. And so just looking at the agenda, that have we also just finished item number 4, review and discuss possible key performance measures based on legislative. I think that's what we're talking about, right? Yeah. Strategic planning and progress. Connie, what do we have in mind when we talk about strategic planning and progress?
So the Oregon Racing Commission has begun our strategic. We actually started this right after I came on board with a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We basically did a really high level review, and then we started our formal process over the last quarter. And even over the last quarter, we've looked back at what some of our initial concerns were, and things have already changed, many in the positive, fortunately. So what we have done is we have developed, at this point, we've developed a potential new mission statement, and we're working on a vision statement. I'm going to be taking that to our full team tomorrow for our staff meeting, and we'll iron out and flesh out anything else, and then we'll bring that to you at the next meeting like this for your input, and then we'll bring it to the full commission, provided that this committee agrees on it. So we do feel like we have a mission statement that we're working on that's much more inclusive. Some of the things that, you know, we've gotten pushback from before is it being too short and not really paying enough attention to, you know, the health and safety of everybody, you know, the athletes, the both jockey and equine, the gambling public, you know, responsible wagering. And we think that our new mission statement is a lot more inclusive. So we would love to share that with you once again we get staff approval. And we're also working on our vision statement. I don't know if you've done a lot of strategic planning in the past, but the vision statement really needs to be, you know, the end all be all. I do Duolingo, which is a language app, and their vision statement is to be the top educational software in the world. You know, for something that just does language, that's pretty out there, and that's what we need for our vision. You know, I told people when I was applying for this job that we become the commission that everyone goes to find the answers. I put it more eloquently, but you know, the premier gold standard on how I do business. We're not going to be Kentucky Derby, but we can still be the ones that are doing it. They're regulating the best in the country. So we'll work on that and bring that to you as well. I think it's really important to have a statement that we're all focusing on to try to get to the gold star level.
I really appreciate that, Connie, and I believe very much in strategic planning. I have seen in some organizations strategic planning get bogged down with quibbling and quarreling over what seemed like kind of minutia or administrative things rather than sort of the actual plan. So I'm looking forward to the process. Is there, I mean, do we have, when we talk about, you know, strategic thinking, do we want to, you know, bring in any experts on, you know, sort of creating a strategic plan to help us sort of refine and focus our discussion, or how do you sort of see that process unfolding?
I know some agencies have brought some consultants in. You know, they usually charge a pretty hefty fee. I don't know that that's necessary with us unless there's a specific angle you want to cover. I can tell you I've taken master level classes from Portland State on strategic planning, and my last organization, which was an educational organization, worked on strategic planning on an annual basis. It was just a normal part of our budget process, as well as the state has an initiative for everyone to update their strategic planning, and they have very specific steps that they want us to go through for that. So we're doing all of that. The only area where I think is if there was a specific area of interest that you had or you wanted us to look into, working with a consultant might be good.
It sounds like you are our strategic planning secret weapon, because you've done all that training and you've got the experience. So it sounds like we probably don't need an outside consultant. And so again, I'm really looking forward to it. I would like, and I don't know how everyone else feels about this, I know that I would like there to be a conversation about HISA, and you know, should Oregon be involved with HISA? My opinion is we should. I know that there might be disagreement. Is this the right forum to talk about HISA, or is that a conversation that we should have with the full commission? Should we have it here first and then talk to the full commission? What do you think about that?
I can give you a little bit of background on that. I was involved with HISA in the initial discussions on putting that together. There's a number of factors on that which have prevented us from going along with HISA. First of all, it's not required for us because we don't simulcast, and most of our races are quarter horses. So there isn't a lot of enthusiasm from the industry to do what they have to. Now, obviously, if we tell them they have to, they have to. So that's fine. We can certainly do it. The biggest thing is the cost. The estimates that we got would be about 500,000 a year to be a member of HISA. It's very expensive, and part of the reason it's so expensive is because of all the lawsuits. I'm sure you've heard about the lawsuits from all the different states. Well, anything that you charge HISA becomes part of the cost of doing business with them. So they have to take those costs back out. So because of those factors, we didn't move forward with anything on it. There are a lot of requirements that they have for upgrading things that would cost money. You know, it would cost a track probably several $100,000, our commercial track, to make the upgrades they need. But in general, actually, I don't even think it would cost that much, but it would cost some money. There was some systems that they would need to put in place. The good news is, with the HISA initial discussions with the commercial track, although it was owned by different people, they thought that the safety procedures and what they had in place were very, very good, and they would have no problem being qualified for it. The biggest thing is figuring out where we would find the money for that. I think probably a better option. Of course, every dog in the neighborhood's gonna bark now. I think a better option is for us to look at what the HISA requirements are, and maybe even Oregon requirements, and implement those here.
And again, that would be that's a larger discussion with the full commission, right?
Yeah, actually, I think a good place for that discussion as well, which I'm planning on bringing up, is our medication meeting, because I just had a staff member, thanks to his supervisor, Chris, thank you, Chris, put metrics together with all of Oregon's requirements for safety and medication and compare it to Washington, ARCIA, which is the National Association, and HISA, to see which ones are the strictest. And obviously, you may not know this, but California is by far the strictest. They're much more strict than HISA is, and determine which one we want to go down. Now, a year ago, that wouldn't have been a possibility, because we had people on the commission that wouldn't want to look at some of those stricter requirements. But I do think now is a time with our new commissioners that we could get some of these approved.
Should we put this on the January agenda for the full commission to discuss?
Yeah, I think I think the ideal thing to do is to first have it, we'll have the medication anyway, and then the medication committee may decide to do that on their own. If they don't, I'll make sure it's on there regardless.
All right, sounds good. So any further discussion of item 7, the strategic planning and progress? Looking very much forward to that whole process, and Connie, we're lucky that we have your background and skills to guide us through that. So the next and final item is public communication, and I asked for this to be added to the agenda following the fatalities in Grants Pass at the end of the season. And I mean, obviously I was very concerned about the fatalities themselves, but I also, you know, I had thoughts about how it was communicated or not communicated, both to members of the commission as well as to the public. And I think that, you know, in thinking about the audit that was done, and in thinking about, you know, sort of, you know, where the public is on the topic of breakdowns and fatalities, I feel like we need to be absolutely 100% committed to full transparency, where we are giving people, you know, as much information as we have when these incidents occur. And you know, if there is, you know, I spent some time on the California Racing Board on their website. They have a veterinarian or a veterinary reports page on their website that lists all of the incidents that happen on the tracks. including results of the necropsies and other investigations. And so, one of the things that that perhaps we could do is build a function like that on our website, so that if a fatality or breakdown happens within 24 hours, it's put on the website so that people can go to it, and we publish whatever we know, and then we update that as more information becomes available. And if we don't know how a breakdown happened or why or whatever, then we tell people that. We just say, this happened yesterday, an investigation is underway, and we will, we'll publish the results of the investigation once we have them. But again, my concern here is making sure that, that we are projecting authentic transparency and honesty, and we're trying to get information out there to the public as rapidly as possible. But also, of course, we want to make sure that we're being, accurate in the information that we're giving. So, and that was sort of baptism by fire coming, starting our tenure on the commission with this cluster of tragedies that just, it's just heartbreaking. But, I believe in finding an opportunity even in the most heartbreaking and tragic circumstances. So if this is a teaching moment, and if this gives us, the needed impetus to get forward or to move forward and have some sort of function, some sort of public communication function. Again, my thought is putting it on our website. We could also do press releases, whatever. But I think it's important, and I think that's what the public wants. I think it's what the legislature wants. I think it's what the governor wants. So anyway, I'm certainly opening the floor up for comments on that.
Commissioner Bigstad, I will say that I did see recently, and it may have been California, where they were putting that data on. And I think that's a good idea. I have no problem with that. And we control our website content, so we can make that a done deal right now. We just have to design the space for it. It may take a month or so to figure out the best place and how to do that. But there's no reason why we can't do that. Like, let me spend a little bit of time researching what California has to see how they have that laid out, and then we can make that happen before the next racing season for sure.
Commissioner Adams, do you have any thoughts on this?
I appreciate the promotion. I'll take that. I'm sure it'll be reflected in my paycheck.
Committee member, sorry.
Their paycheck's smaller than yours, so I think you better keep what you got.
In doing my research on the key performance measures, the first being the animal safety and the target numbers and things like that, and it may be my inexperience in utilizing some of these websites, but it seems like the injury and death tracking data is something nationally that's held pretty close to the vest. And again, I couldn't speak as to why that is. One of the main sources of information that I did find came from jockeyclub.com. They have an equine injury database, which is thoroughbred in nature. But it does state in that only 35 of 113 active national tracks participate in that. Oregon, of course, is not a contributor to that data. But there is very little data when it comes to publishing not only the statistical numbers, but any cause and effect or cause and manner associated with those. There is no formal reporting for deaths and injuries that I'm aware of for training, which is estimated at between 30 and 50% of race data, at least according to thoroughbredracing.com. There are some kind of baseline statistics that are presented for track data, but when it comes to publishing any of those that hard data, it's very, very difficult to find. So I think that would be beneficial, in the sake of transparency. I think we should probably participate in some of these other data sources. And I would say, just having come from, kind of a law enforcement aspect, I would wait to maybe put that information out until we have something substantial to go along with it, whether that be the necropsy or toxicology results, things of that nature, because people are aware of the breakdowns when they happen, or the traumatic incidents. But when you want to go forward with that information, I think it's good to have something behind it that says, hey, these are all the things that we included in the investigation of this incident. This is what we found, or this is what we didn't find, to bolster that.
Does anyone else want to chime in here? And that would include anyone, Linnell or Tag. If you have anything to add on this, would be happy to hear your thoughts.
I'm trying to get your attention here. Like I said, I'm pretty low tech here, but I did want to kind of chime in. I've been doing this for a while as the director of communications and marketing at Grants Pass Downs, and I can just kind of talk about my own situation and the fact that I've dealt with situations like we dealt with during the fall meet for quite a few years. And I fully agree with you. Being transparent is definitely a good thing, but I think it's very, very important too that you find that balance, which is anything but an exact science, in being transparent and then not trying to draw too much attention to yourself, just kind of knowing how the media is. And then also, I have a lot of experience in that particular area, because when I'm back home here in Humboldt County, I'm a member of the media. I do play-by-play, I do sports talk radio, I work for a couple of different radio groups. So I'm in that position where I have a really good feel, just based on years of experience, of what's happening on both sides of the fence. And the one thing that I've learned through the years in dealing with different situations at Grants Pass Downs and working closely with Rod Lowe and Steve Wood and different people that I've worked with as far as management at Grants Pass Downs, and then of course working with TMB Racing and Randy Evers and whatnot, is that I think it's, from a messaging standpoint, it's really important that everybody's on the same page as far as how you handle situations like what we had to deal with this past fall at Grants Pass Downs. And then the one thing that I have really learned through the years, because I have a good working relationship with people like Chris and Dr. Everman, that I really think it's important to have people who really know what they're talking about and who are there on site and really have an idea of what actually happened, to have those people, speak on behalf of the industry when it comes to being transparent and talking about accidents and fatalities. And I know that I've worked really, really hard with Dr. Everman and developing that type of working relationship with him. So when I get phone calls or text messages or different media outlets reach out to me to find out what's going on, basically my job is to give them the details and particulars as far as the who, what, where, when, that type of thing. But when it comes to actually talking about the incident and what happened to either the horse or the jockey, then I basically defer to Dr. Everman. And I've had a lot of success, and it's worked out very, very well, where the media ends up being very satisfied with how we handle the situation. So then the situation doesn't become, bigger than it really is, as far as just accepting what happened at face value. So I just kind of wanted to share my own personal experience with you, just based on what I've experienced through the years firsthand at Grants Pass Downs, and the way, you know, the industry handles these type of situations. You know, whether it's the Breeders' Cup or whether it's Grants Pass Downs or a Triple Crown race or Saratoga, you know, these are things that happen. And I think the one thing that we need to always keep in mind is that because of the nature of the industry, we can't make it safe, because like any type of sport, there's dangers involved and there's going to be injuries involved. All we can do is try to make it safer. Okay. So when people say, okay, you need to make horse racing safe, well, that's not realistic. That's not possible. We can make it safer, but because of the sport and the industry and everything that's going on, you know, you also have to kind of keep things in perspective. So I know I'm sharing a lot of information with you, but I just thought that since you brought this up and you're talking about it and HISA and whatnot, and some of the things that we've dealt with through the years at Grants Pass Downs, and I've worked with, you know, trust me, I've worked with Ray Pollock. You know, Ray Pollock was in contact with me this year, for instance, you know, when Lionel Camacho Flores got hurt, and Ray reached out to me. This is kind of just an example of what I'm talking about, is that I got an email from Ray. I've worked with Ray and his wife, Carol, and Emily, and the people at the Pollock Report, who I have so much respect for as far as how they cover the industry, and to a certain extent also being an industry watchdog. And Ray reached out to me because he got an email from someone that talked about the first accident that we had at Grants Pass Downs, which would have been, I want to say on Monday, October 2nd, when the horse went down and then the other horse stumbled on top of that horse. And we had a couple of riders get hurt, including Lionel Camacho Flores, who I've been talking with on a regular basis. And Ray reached out to me, and he had received an email that Lionel had suffered a serious injury. Well, after talking with Rod and Randy, I said, you know what? I said, I want to make sure I communicate with Ray, unlike what's happened in the past, because I've seen people just ignore Ray, which is not the right way to handle the situation, going back to that transparent thing. And I told Ray about, you know, what actually happened, and that you know, Lionel was admitted to the hospital in Grants Pass, and then he was resting comfortably, you know, at the hospital in Medford, and that he had suffered a concussion, and so on and so forth, and that I will keep you updated on what's going on. And unfortunately, the horse had to be put down. And if I exchanged one email with Ray, I probably exchanged about a half a dozen emails with him, and I just kind of updated him on Lionel's status, and he was great. He just said, okay. And they didn't even, the Pollock Report didn't even end up running a story. And I think one reason they didn't run the story is because we were very transparent with them, and we communicated with them, and we didn't ignore them. And Ray was able to get information from us because as soon as Lionel got released from the hospital, I couldn't get on my computer fast enough to let Ray know that Lionel had been released. And in fact, I talked to Lionel because Lionel showed up at the jockey's room a couple days later, you know, after the actual accident, when he was released from the hospital to get his stuff. And I had a chance to see him before he had headed back to California with his family. And so I really think I'm using that as an example. Okay, the combination of being transparent and answering the question in a professional way and in a transparent way, and then also making sure that the people that are speaking on behalf of us, meaning Grants Pass Downs, and the industry are people that are close to the situation, whether it's people that are, working with Connie and the Racing Commission, or people that are involved with management at Grants Pass Downs. So I just wanted to kind of share that information with you, just based on my years of experience in doing this and then dealing with the media. And I know how the media has changed through the years as far as how they report and handle situations like this. But I just wanted to, share that information with you, hoping that that would maybe educate you a little bit, and then kind of give you an idea of where I'm coming from as someone who's on both sides of the fence.
Very much appreciated, Tag. Linnell, do you want anything you want to add on this?
Sure. And I'd like to thank Tag, because he's always been the most professional and excellent spokesperson and liaison with the media. He's done a tremendous job in Grants Pass. The media is tricky, and I think we've all seen that too in the last year with several articles, and even our board has struggled with, okay, do you refute these things? And then you wonder, is it wise to get into, that toe-to-toe match with the media? Because when that happens, it's probably not going to come out good for us. And unfortunately, the media focuses on negative, and they'll find any little negative thing, digging for that. And I think there's a trick that you do on Google. When you want positive stuff, you just keep feeding Google with positive stories to push those negative searches down further. And I think that's what our industry needs right now, is we need as much positive as we can to just push out there constantly, so that when these negative things come up and the challenges come up, we can deal with them smoothly and not have it blow up into something more than it should be. Yes, we should be transparent always and honest, and having the right people speaking. I've had media call me fishing for stories, and I've always, stepped back and said, I don't really have a comment for that right now, or let me get back to you, because that's what they tend to do. And it's a delicate balance. I think certainly we can find that balance and have things public, but controlled. And Tag is absolutely right, having the right people speaking, so that they're not, running to Connie for a story and trying to get someone else to counter that and come up with a different story, being on the same page. And that kind of leads me into the other comment I want to make. The best practices for the commission is awesome. I am so glad you're going back to this and having some kind of measurement for how you're doing as an agency. But even a bigger picture, we're kind of at the point where we need that for our whole industry. Years ago, before Portland Meadows closed, Commissioner, we had a group called Frog, and it was the Future of Racing in Oregon group. And we met monthly, and it was 2 commissioners, 2 representatives from each stakeholder, and we would have just a roundtable discussion. And sometimes it was contentious, sometimes there were knockdown, drag out fights, but we were working on issues as a group and as a whole. And I would love to see us get back to that. That's kind of why I think having some kind of meeting in January would be helpful, to start talking about different issues with the whole industry. And, I'm up in Portland, and then the rest of them are down in Grants Pass, and I don't get a lot of communication from the HBPA or from the track. And having a forum where we can actually sit down and do that, and if it's not in person, we can certainly do monthly Zoom or every other month Zoom calls, so that we can all be on the same page for legislation, for instituting this off-track thoroughbred and slaughter program and policy, for dealing with the media, and for doing this as a group, instead of, okay, the commission's going to do this and the breeders are going to do this and the HBPA is doing this. It's time we all really come together. And with TMB, that went away. They decided they were going to do things their own way, and they didn't include the rest of us. I think we need to get back to that. We're at a low. We're at a low for funding. We're at a low for public perception, and we need to build this back. And the more positive we can do that, the more it's going to help everyone. This isn't me against them or them against you. It's, we all need to work together, and HISA is part of that. It's, the track operation and funding is part of that, and getting breeding numbers up is part of that. So maybe this can be the impetus to do that. I welcome that. Let me know whatever I can do to help that.
So
And-
are you kind of imagining a meeting, a regular meeting of what you just described? So the industry groups, which would be like yourself and the HPVA,
Right.
HBTA.
Yes.
And so it wouldn't be, you know, we wouldn't have a quorum of commissioners there, so it wouldn't
Right.
technically be a commission meeting. I love the idea, and definitely, you know, count me in. And I think that fostering open communication right out of the gate among all of us is going to be very important. You know, that doesn't necessarily mean that we go into this with the expectation that we're all going to see eye to eye on things. I think we won't, but I think that's all the more reason why we need to start having these conversations. So if, I don't know, Linnell, if you've got the bandwidth to maybe set up an initial meeting, maybe in January.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And Connie, I can talk with you about that too, either before the commission meeting or after, and just invite the stakeholders to come together. You know, we don't set policy in this group. We just talk about the issues and see
Yeah.
you know, how we can help each other.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And Linnell, I've been saying or been promoting this idea again for some time.
Yeah.
But, you know, again, if it's run by the commission, it's a commission meeting.
Right.
But we
Right.
can provide the space for you.
Right. And that's the way Frog was too, was the
Yes,
commissioners were
exactly.
on that group just as a listening and
I almost recommend that, you know, from my standpoint, I would recommend a couple of changes. I would come up with a new name, so it's
Right.
new.
right.
I would recommend that you not go through all the trouble that you did as far as making a whole business and everything. But-
Right. We did that, I think, too, because we wanted to donate to campaigns or legislators.
Right,
So we
yeah.
had the PAC, and
Yeah.
that got very complicated because there was no money in the PAC anyway.
There was no,
Um,
yeah,
So yeah, just making it a simple, more like roundtable discussion group.
yeah,
yeah.
and we have that room all morning.
Okay.
So, I mean, I think that's great. And if you talk to people in advance, I think they'd come.
Yeah.
And Commissioner Beckstead, one of the things that we did when we decided to go remote is we wanted to always have a standing meeting in Portland once a year and always have a standing meeting in Grants Pass once a year. And it's important that we have both because although most of the racing people might be in Grants Pass, we have our tote companies, our EDW companies, and several other entities that are up in the Portland area. And we also need it for our staff. We need to get staff together on you know, a couple times a year as well, for team building as well. So great job, Linnell. Give me
No,
a call
that-
anytime and we can, you know, let's set time together so we can start brainstorming on that and I can help you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I think that'll be really, really good and very positive. And you know, plus, you know, I would, you know, when I was being questioned during the confirmation hearing, I was asked, you know, will I work collaboratively with, you know, people in the industry? And I answered in the affirmative. I really do want to get to know the people in the racing industry. I want them to get to know me. I want to be able to have really great conversations, you know, where maybe we're coming at it from different sides or different angles, but we're still, you know, all working toward the same thing. So thank you, Linnell. Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
willing to do that. And I'm looking forward to that. Okay. Well, you know, I always prided myself when I was the mayor of Waldport. Waldport had this history of having city council meetings that lasted till 2 a.m. And I took over, and you know, there was like community-wide demand for shorter meetings. So I've always prided myself on being able to to get through an agenda in good time. And I actually set a record for all of Waldport's history. We once had a city council meeting that only lasted 45 minutes, and like there was this eruption of cheers when I adjourned because we had just done our business in record time. So I don't believe in taking up a whole lot of time, but I just, if there's final comments or thoughts, now is the time. Please speak up and be heard. All right. Well, hearing nothing, thank you all for a great meeting and some great conversations. I'm looking forward to moving forward on these items. And Connie, if there's anything else that you or Karen need from me, by all means, let me know. All right. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I recommend we adjourn.
Second.
I agree. We are hereby adjourned. You guys all have a great day, and we'll see. Oh, by the way, when's our next meeting?
Oh, good question. This is up to you.
Yeah.
We can do a routine of every quarter. We can do it every month. We can do it as needed. It's completely up to you.
How about quarterly? How about quarterly meetings? Does that work for everyone? Is that neither underkill nor overkill? We meet quarterly?
I think that's ideal. And we have a couple
Perfect.
agenda items anyway, so we should have plenty to do before then, and that will have us getting back together just about the time we finished up the items you've given us so far.
Perfect. All righty. Everyone have a great day, and we'll see you again soon.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks.